you a veteran or active service member? Do you need help buying or refinancing a home? Then you need to call Chris Wiley. Chris Wiley has been a strong supporter of Gun Owners Radio, San Diego County Gun Owners, the Second Amendment, and he also volunteers at the Duncan L. Hunter Wounded Marine Golf Classic. Bottom line, Chris is an incredibly strong supporter of our men and women in uniform. So if you're looking to buy or refi, or if you're considering a reverse mortgage, call Chris Wiley at PRMI Mortgage. With Chris, it's more than just a loan. It's a tool to help build financial freedom. With a VA loan from Chris, you don't need PMI insurance, you get great rates and flexibility, and you have an easier qualification process. For nearly 25 years, Chris has been helping out vets with all their mortgage needs. So call Chris Wiley at 619-722-1303 or go to primeres.com/alpine.
Hey, so welcome. My name's Michael Schwartz. I'm with Gun Owners Radio, and we're doing another episode of Gun Owners Radio Magnum. Gun Owners Radio is live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. in California. If you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. on the radio. Or if you're anywhere in the world, you can watch us on youtube.com/Gun Owners Radio. It's a 2-hour show, a lot of great information. But we also started doing these interviews, the Gun Owners Radio Magnum interviews. Magnum meaning they're longer, they're more in-depth, interesting people in the Second Amendment arena. And that's what we're doing today. So today I'm interviewing Cung Lee. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Now, Cung Lee, you are a martial artist, or how do you like to, what's your title? What do you like to, what would you say you are? What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to, punch people in the face for a living. I'm retired from that now, and now I'm partners with Barrier Tactical, and I'm writing some film scripts, and just having a good time training my son, and just I'm actually NRA certified to teach firearms, and since this pandemic, between the Asian community to every community who is kind of waking up, they're like, hey, we're going to exercise our Second Amendment. We're going to, arm ourselves. And the smart thing that they're doing is we're going to learn how to use our firearms properly, how to store it, how to, what is legal and what is not, and stuff like that. So, I really got involved with Bay Area Tactical, and I started teaching classes when they were overwhelmed with, so many requests. And, I figure, hey, I figure I used to love teaching martial arts. It's, it's a little bit different, but, it's also hands-on, with the instruction and stuff like that. So when I'm not writing films, I'm out there teaching, so I can at least have range time after I teach,
So you're seeing a big influx of people with the pandemic, and I'm assuming the riots. Are you seeing a big influx of students?
A massive influx. Like,
wow, talk about that. What's that look like?
It's like, it seems like every class, it's like packed. Like they are always busy. Sometimes they run like 8 classes a day. Like they rotate them out. Like the first half, someone comes in and they get them like all dialed in as like safety and all the all the paperwork stuff. Then they send them off to the range, and then just they rotate it that way.
Wow. And specifically, people are telling you everything that's going on in the world, all the craziness that's happening. I've decided to get a gun, or I've decided to get training.
Yeah, I mean, for the majority of the clients, they're just like, look what's going on. We don't want to be a victim, or their neighbors are getting robbed, or a home invasion. And it's like one story after another. So, they realize they could be next, and they prefer to be educated and become that harder target, so.
Yeah. Well, I was really excited for this interview. I did a lot of background research, looking into your career and reading a lot about you. And I wanted to talk about your personal life a little bit. Can you tell people, where were you born and how did you come to the United States?
I was born in Saigon, Vietnam. I left the country when, there was war going on. I left the week before the fall of Saigon, and I went to the Philippines for like 3 months for the first refugee camp. Then moved to Guam for I don't remember how long, and then we had a refugee camp in Monterey. So then from there we got a sponsor, and we stayed with our sponsor for like 6 months, and then my grandfather was able to move into a house, and we were that typical Asian family where we had like 13, 14 people, and there's 4 bedrooms. And of course my grandfather and my grandmother had their room, and my great grandma had their room. So I was shuffled in with the aunts because my mom was the oldest, and of course the uncles had their room. It was like four in a room, me making 5 for the aunts. So when I was
Wow.
like
And
so,
when you left Saigon, so that would have been 1975, which would have made you about what, 3 years old?
almost 3.
Wow. Do you remember that at all? Do you remember that transition?
I don't really remember much of it about it now, but I know we left under gunfire, and my grandfather was like a chief of police, so, and then like as a colonel's rank, and then he was also, he spoke 4 languages, and worked for the government as a translator, so-called, and we were fortunate enough to, where the U.S. said, hey, we can't protect you anymore. You got 2 hours, 1 suitcase each. Hope you guys can make it. And
oh my gosh.
we made it, and got on the helicopter, and we are out of there, so.
Now I think I read, how did your dad fare? How did your father fare getting out of Saigon?
You know what? My dad didn't come until I was 8 years old,
Wow.
so that's just like a longer story. He could have left with us, but he decided to stay. He had his own family, whatever he had, his side of the family, and he didn't want to leave. And and that was kind of, what it is. So I came over here raised by a single mom, and I saw her struggles. Coming over here, she already had a 4 years degree in Vietnam, so she had to start over, go back to school, and working 2, sometimes 3 jobs. And so, it's then finally when my dad did come, it from the time I was 8 to when I was a freshman in high school, um, you know, uh, it was okay in the beginning, but then it got a little rocky for my dad and my mom, and then they ended up getting divorced, and then I stuck with my mom, and kind of like the rest is history. It's um, uh, where he decided, because I didn't want to take his last name, and I took my mom's last name, and kind of like disowned me for whatever reason that he had, because I didn't want to take his last name. But then once I got famous as a fighter, he's, oh, that's my son. And so my mom always taught me learn to forgive. So I forgave him, but it's hard to forget. But at the same time, I try to have a relationship with him, but it's like it was always on his term, on his time, and it was never consistent. So I just told myself, when I have kids, I'm never going to be that way. I'm going to be the best dad I can be. And I and that was like my goal to myself. And then I was able to forgive him. He went on and lived his life, and then he passed away last Thanksgiving, a day before Thanksgiving, and I didn't get a chance to say goodbye, but I reached out to God Almighty, and I said, hey, let him know I said goodbye, and sorry didn't get a chance to say goodbye when we're in our human form. So it's okay now. So I'm moving on, and I feel because of the struggles, because of the lack of that father figure, I was able to really focus and have a strong mindset to overcome a lot of hardship, and I was dedicated, so I became the champion that I am.
Yeah, I would imagine that would have, I mean, growing up what was it like when your mom was, you said your mom was struggling. She's a single mom, big family in a smaller house, relatively new to the country. How did that affect you growing up? Were you hyper aware of it, or was it just another thing, or how did that affect you, growing up being a little boy?
Well, I mean, I believe it affected me a lot. One, because when you come over here and American, like, the people who were not educated about what happened, they kind of like, why did my uncle, why did my father, why did my brother die in Vietnam, and look at all these boat people, look at all these gooks, look at all these nips, coming over here, and now they're like all over the place in certain areas. And so I was a victim of being bullied. And then from there I feel like that was the where my mom's like, you got to learn how to defend yourself. I'm a woman, I can only go and complain. So I just learned the hard way, school of hard knocks. I just started like, screw this, I'm throwing the first punch, I don't care. I'm just gonna, if I come home bloody, then at least I fought back, not going home bloody. I didn't fight, mom. I tried to make you proud, and I didn't throw a punch at all. After a while, my mom's like, you got to fight back. You can't just come home and not give some licks. So I started just like, someone got in my face, I cracked them, and if they're still standing, then the fight goes on. And then that's kind of like how that my mindset. And then once I got into wrestling, and then by the time I was a eighth grader, I was like, I went to the nationals, got in the top 6. And then I remember my last day as an eighth grader, this freshman came and I guess wanted to start a fight because whether it's his little brother or whatever didn't like me. And then I just remember like he came out of like just out of the crowd, and they're all waiting, and just when I walked home, everyone was there, and like he didn't give me a chance. He threw a punch, but I remember I shot in a double leg. I picked him up and I slammed him down. I was gonna cock up and punch, and he was like choking because he got the air knocked out of him. So I just got up, and I kind of got up, and I'm like, what, to everyone. I was just so amped, and then that adrenaline. So I just grabbed my backpack and I started walking home, and then from there I got to San Jose High School as a freshman, and I was already like this a good recruit for the high school, coming in already trying out for like the varsity team, and there was like 2 seniors from the weight that I wanted to go and the weight above, and then I was just always fighting for that varsity spot. And then in high school I just didn't take any shit. Someone run their mouth, I'm shooting doubles and putting them on their backs. So
What's funny about that? So you were, I think you went to high school late 80s. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to high school just after you in the early 90s. I think you're just a few years older.
Yeah, I graduated in 90, so
90. Okay. So yeah. So just a couple, I graduated in 94. I started wrestling in 7th grade, and it was kind of because all my football buddies were wrestling. I didn't know anything about wrestling, and wrestled for a few years. And I started telling people, this isn't just the sport. Like, this is really combat. And back then in the late 80s, early 90s, that was before, MMA was really a thing. Everybody was very segmented, and everybody, no, wrestling's just some dumb sport. It's a bunch of guys rolling around on the mat. But I think that, once MMA started, it really, grappling kind of came into its own. And it, first off, we didn't call it grappling. It was just wrestling, it was collegiate, freestyle, or Greco-Roman.
Yeah.
But I think it really truly proved its mettle. And I don't think, fighting has been the same since.
I think all the top guys in most of the weights is a decorated wrestler, so and wrestlers I think is a perfect segue into the mixed martial arts.
I think you're right. So okay, so you did taekwondo as well, right? You were doing taekwondo and wrestling.
Yeah, my mom started me in Taekwondo when I was when I was 10, because I was getting beat up and coming home, not every single day, but I would come home at least once a week with either a bloody lip, or one time I came home with a bloody face because I didn't realize my nose is like bleeding that bad, and I just kind of wiped it and had a streak of blood on my face. And then coming home, I was like, "What's this itching on my face?" Then I looked in the someone's window, I mean the mirror, and I'm like, dang. So, and I'm washing my face, and my mom comes out, "What's going on? How come you don't come in? Aren't you hungry?" And I looked up, and there was still a little bit of blood on my face. She's like, "What happened?" So I just told her, I got beat up, and I didn't fight back. It's because you told me not to fight back. And she's like, "Oh, no, 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 no. This can't happen. If they're gonna beat you up like this, you might as well try to bloody them too." So I was like, okay. So
And I think every guy can relate to, getting into fights and bullying or being bullied. And I think there a certain amount of it is probably healthy. It seems like boys have to, get tangled up and fight each other. And some of my best friends started out with where we were fighting, and then we got it out of our system, and then we became good friends. But too much is obviously too much. And there's something particularly sinister about being bullied for, your heritage, or,
yeah.
who you are. And not just like, hey, that kid said something I didn't like. I mean, that's one thing, but being bullied for who you are and your DNA, there's something particularly sinister about that. I would imagine that probably, and maybe it didn't, but that may have resulted in some rage, some inner rage.
Yeah, for me it did, because I think at one point by the time I was like, in eighth grade, I was already kind of a decorated wrestler, because even as a seventh grade, my first year in wrestling, I went to the nationals. I didn't place, but I went there. I made it there. And then come eighth grade, I just remember, after getting picked on and bullied, and I wasn't taking it. And then like I made a few mistakes. I thought someone was like gonna come at me, and but just because they're the way they approached me, I didn't know. So I was always the one throwing the first punch. So I didn't get hit and or caught off guard. And sometimes they're just like, hey, and I'm cracking them. I didn't know, so it made me look like the bully. But I was like, because I was so paranoid of being picked on so much. So I was just I just started throwing punches. And I look back, and man, it's just like that's why I said School of Hard Knocks. You got to learn the hard way, or if I had someone like myself mentoring my kids, then it's like different. Like my son Anthony, he can really destroy like pretty much everyone in his high school, and maybe two or three at the same time, because he's such a beast. But before this pandemic, as a freshman, I'm pretty sure he would beat up seniors if they picked on him, but he was that guy, because I explained to him about being a bully and about sticking up for people being bullied. So he just took after, he took my words in. And then when he did get into a fight, I asked him what happened. Well, these guys were picking on my friend, and my friend's really skinny, he's Indian, and I just stuck up for him. Did you kick his ass? And he's like, I kicked both their asses. I'm like, great. All right, I'll let your teacher know and see what happens. And I'm that parent. Yeah. And if he did wrong, you kicked their ass for no reason, you're gonna go do some laps.
You're in big trouble. Yeah.
You're in big trouble, and you're gonna be training for the next 8 hours. And then after that, when you're tired and hungry, you get to clean the whole freaking house. Then you can have dinner. That's kind of like things I would do. And then so they know. And then or I would pull their Xbox card. Oh, no game for a week. And I didn't never had to put hands on my kids. I just, okay, start doing push-ups. And if you can't do it, lock it out. If you can't lock it out because your arms are shaking, stay on your knees. But you're gonna stay down there. Look at the ground. So I mean, it definitely helps, instead of being like, having to put hands on your kids. When I do stuff like that and I take things away, they automatically like, I'm not going to say I never smacked them. I've smacked them, but never hard,
Right.
Um,
So
and
after high school, what did your career look like? I think if I read correctly that you didn't get into professional fighting until after you were 30. Is that accurate?
no, I after high school, I went to 2 years of junior college at West Valley College. I two-time All-American collegiate wrestler. I wrestled year round, and then after that, I got into Taekwondo, and I kind of dropped out of school because as a freshman, I won state. Then as a sophomore, I was ranked number one and one or two between this guy Neil Mason and myself, and then I ended up getting upset at right before, like early in the rounds, like the second round, and then I had to fight my way all the way back to get third place, and then like the guy who beat me, uh, I met him because he got to the semis and got knocked off going into into the finals, and then I ended up beating him. So I knew, it's just a fluke match. I had a bad match, and then after that, I kind of took it hard, and and then at the same time, my mom really needed help at her travel agency, so I got kind of just took a break from junior college, and then went and helped out my mom, and I found my way back into martial arts, and I guess the rest is history. I found that where I can punch, I can kick, I can throw. I found Sanda, or whatever they want to call it. It's a Chinese form of fighting, and then I just excelled like it was the crazy amount of matches that I was just destroying people. Was like, I was made for it. And then slowly but surely I transitioned into, as a professional in my, but I was in my 20s, and then I think I was 26 when I fought for Scott Coker, and then I, the rest is history. I didn't get into MMA till I was like 32 or 33. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, I started MMA late, but not martial arts.
I see. Okay. So, and watching your highlight reel is like watching a video game. I mean, the stuff that you pull off is the kind of stuff that you might see and you think like, well, that's never going to work in a real situation. And not only did you make it work in a real situation, but you made it work in a real situation against another professional fighter. I mean, the moves were amazing. What was your toughest fight?
I gotta say, it was in this tournament called the Shidokan. It was in 1998. It was in Chicago, and it was like the triathlon of martial arts, where you start out the rounds before you get to the finals. It's like 2-2-2, so 6 rounds, 2 rounds of bare knuckle karate. You can't punch to the face, but you can knee and kick to the head. Then after that, you put on boxing gloves, like 10-ounce gloves, and you go Muay Thai rules with throws. Then after that, you take off the boxing gloves and you put on like MMA gloves, and you do MMA rules. And you can't ground and pound, because back then it was, you couldn't ground and pound the guy, but you take him down and look for submissions. And then I went to the Shootokan, and I got to the finals, and it was a partner of Andy Hug, who was a K1 champion, who was out of Switzerland. He ended up dying of leukemia, but it was the guy I fought was Arnie Silverdale, and just because he did similar moves that I did, he would throw the wheel kick up high, so I would expect it coming up high. Then he threw the wheel kick and it spun and hit me right in the nerve in my leg, and I was like, oh man, I feel like throwing up just when it hit, and it was just one of those really tough battles where I remember like I was so beat up because he had 2 knockouts before he got to the finals. I had like the first round, I went to the second round, I got a wheel kick knockout, but then my semi-final match, I went almost the whole distance, and I got, at that time I was just a good wrestler, and then I took the guy down and I just jumped into a foot lock, and then he tapped, so I won by submission, right? And then And then when I got to the finals against Arnie, it was just like toe to toe in the bare knuckle. Then, but I was dominating. But then when we put on the boxing gloves, it was like really even. Then he did those crazy weird moves that I would be doing, you know. Then I started trying to do some scissor kicks on him because it was with the boxing gloves, and I got him on a scissor kick, and he just got up like no big deal. And I was like, man, this guy is tough as shit. And he kept. And as soon as we put on the MMA gloves, he cracked me a few times, and I was like, dang, this hurts more than, like it's like getting hit bare knuckle, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember in the 7th round, it was like towards the end, and I was like, I was fading fast, like my energy was low. And I remember he came in, he was like going for a knockout. I slipped underneath this punch, and I came with the overhand right, overhand right, and then he like literally like I remember his head hit the top rope, the middle rope, the bottom rope, and he almost slid out, and they caught him, and they kept him there. And I was so happy, and I was like, like jumping for joy. And the funny thing was, I had the U.S. When I was fighting for amateur and I was representing the U.S. My coach, who was like a lower level Shaolin monk, like he was in his gi, jumped in the ring, and everyone was celebrating, and I was just like, oh my god, like I was pumped up. But like I remember like the adrenaline wore off right in the middle, like when they were giving me my big trophy, and I was like, oh, my ear, oh, my jaw, oh, my legs, oh, my skin. Oh. It's like right after I'm like, take me to the hospital. I need painkillers. I need like, whatever it takes to forget about this pain. And I remember that because I had 3 fights in like a 6-hour, like window, I was beat up, I was like up. And, then the guy I beat in the semifinals, after that year, I just continued to fight pro, but like for promotions. That guy in the semifinals ended up winning it, I think the next 2 years, right? So like all my matches were like the top guys in that type of fighting, so they call it Shidokan. And it was crazy. It was
so when we see guys enter the ring, on UFC or whatever professional MMA, that's serious business. You guys have to go in there with a plan. How do you plan, a fight? I mean, there's such chaos in hand-to-hand combat. How do you go into a fight? How do you go into a professional fight with a plan?
Well, you just got to prepare yourself, like you do a lot of tape studies, just like any other professional sports, whether it's football or basketball. The other team watches how the team, plays and what plays they run. And the same thing as like when you go in and you have a opponent. And before I didn't like to watch like film or do any film study, because for me, I would go in there, I would be in really, really good shape, and I would defend what's coming and attack what's open. And I always usually win by KO or win by, like a big margin. But then when I got to UFC, I was a little bit older, getting into my twilight years. And I was like, man, I'm not recovering the same. And, these guys are tough, they're around. I remember when I fought like Vanderlei, I was hitting them with everything, but, going into the Vanderlei fight, like my training camp, I had King Mo as one of my main training partners back when he was, he was still like strong, and he was like that beast fighting at 205, high level Olympic wrestler, picking me up, slamming me. And then, I felt the body like starting to wear down, like he picked me up and slammed me. And I was like, I think my ribs got cracked, because I mean the adrenaline was so high in during sparring. And when I drove home, I was like, I barely could get out of the car, and I was like, oh man, this is I'm thinking now, oh, maybe am I taking it? I'm trying to fight out a couple more fights. I'm finally in the UFC. I'm just gonna do it, right? So I fought. I was dominating Vanderlei, and then I got caught at the end of the second round, and then they stopped the fight. I was in on a single leg. My nose was already broken, but then he was punching me behind the head. They stopped it, and I was like, oh, man, I could have finished. I mean, I have a good plastic surgeon, And then I remember it was a guy who refed a lot of my matches. He's all, hey, let's just live to fight another day, right? I'm all right. So in my head, I had to get it back. So when I won my next match, I was like, okay, you know, I won one match in UFC. Maybe is it time? And of course, after the fight, it was against Patrick Cote. At the time, Patrick Cote was the only guy who went, 3 rounds against Anderson Silva, right? So I beat him, and then when I remember in the first round, I kicked him in the head, and I thought I broke my foot. And I remember I coming back, and then my corner, I was like, I think I broke my foot. And of course, Scott Sheely, who uh, like a teammate for the U.S. national team, and then also I fought him twice as a professional. And I brought him in to help out because he's really organized and he breaks other fighters down really good. And then I remember him and Javier saying, "You want us to throw in the towel? You want to quit now?" I'm like, no, I just say my foot hurts. Put some ice on. They're like, well, it's too late now. You got to go back out there. So then when I come back in the second round, they had ice on it. I'm like, oh, and they're like, suck it up. Go out there. You're up on points. Don't do anything stupid like Scott Smith, right? I'm like, okay, I get it. Then I go out there and I figure I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing and maybe slow the pace down. But then he picked up the pace, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna get some takedowns. I'm gonna hold him down for a little bit, and because it was like my second fight in the UFC, and it was a big event. It was at where in the Vegas show where they have their like big convention,
Yeah.
And so I was like, at first I was the co-main event, but then they brought in Tito Ortiz fighting Forrest, so they made him they made them the co-main event, and Anderson Silva versus Chael was the main event. So I was like one match away from for being the co-main event. At one point they're like, hey, you're the co-main event. I'm like, cool. But then after, I didn't care. I was like, yeah, hey, less pressure, because it's like.
So does it get to a point? Is it even possible to get to a point where the fight slows down for you so much that you're in there thinking, I'm going to throw this punch 90% of the time, he counters this way, and therefore I'm going to do this to counter his counter? Does it ever slow down that much, or no way? It's way too fast paced.
Well, like against like lower level fighters, it's you can pretty much make the miss or anything. But when you're up against high level guys, it's like you can see them strategize at the same time. So that's where I study enough and I know what they're doing. I know their body positioning. And then I go in there and I attack what's open and I defend what's coming.
Yeah.
And I'll let the rest play out. I put it in
Right.
God,
So
win, lose or
yeah.
draw.
So you went through the school of hard knocks. You went through highest level of professional fighting that there is on the planet. What's the difference between a fight, a defensive fight against a stranger and a professional fight?
Well, as an amateur, you go in there and you have limited experience, so you don't know what's going to happen, right? And that all the hard work you put in, it's going to pay off one way or another. By the time you like, for me, I had like 80 something amateur fights, right? Because I was that guy who I'd pay my airfare, put myself up in a hotel, pay for an entry fee, and I would fight 3 or 4 fights in 1 or 2 days, and then so I racked up a lot of fights that way. And then I figure I got to stop doing this. This is costing me way too much money. Then I had a team together. Then I took them to the nationals, and I'm like, I'm going to compete too, even though I've been training them. And I'm, even though I'm not in the best shape, I think I can go out there and clean house. I went out there and I was like, wow, it's like Spider-Man. Oh, you watch the, and then you hit them 3 or 4 times. And you're like, oh, should I finish it or should I have a little bit more fun? You get to that point. But then when you go in as a pro, my first couple pro fights as a professional, it was easy pickings too. But then when I went just like a single match instead of like the Shidokan type of tournament where you fight your way in, and if you win, then you win money, right? Then when I got to the bouts, my first match was against the guy who he was from Armenia, and he was like, he had 18 wins and I had no wins as a pro, but I fought pros at the World Championships because the Russians, the Chinese, they pay all their athletes, and I was that. I
Right.
still as a professional, but I didn't get paid as a professional. So so when I went up against that, my first pro match, sanctioned body, fight, I went the distance, and then right after that, my second fight, I ended up knocking like the promoter kind of fibbed a little bit, told me, oh, this is a Japanese second team guy, don't worry about it, just come in. I actually showed up to support my friend. He was fighting, right? Next thing I know, they're like, hey, and I had sparred that Friday because I was thinking I'm gonna go and train, get ready for my fight for Scott Coker in 2.5 weeks. Where I signed with Scott Coker, and then next thing I know, these Russian promoters like, hey, we need you. I'm like, okay, but I just got done sparring earlier today. I'm probably a couple pounds underweight, but there's no way. I'm not. My corner's not even here. They're like, we'll fly them out here, and I'm like, I don't know. And of course, all the, everyone, like my manager and Rob McCauley, and then Razor Rob. He used to fight he was a WEC champion, then he fought for the UFC for a bit, and then, so he was like, come, let's just do it, man. And I'm all, I don't know. And they're like, okay, we'll double your money. And at the time, the first I got paid 5, right? They're like, we'll pay you 10. And if you lose, we'll give you 20. I'm like, if I lose, I get 20. I want to have the 20 if I win, right? And they're like, nope,
Right.
Because you're taking this on last notice. I want that's a shitty, that's a shitty.
That's not good incentive to win, right?
Yeah. So I then I started doing, hey, Rob, get as much footage on this guy as possible, right? And then I remember the next day, like I was in the, I got to the event, and like the whole time Rob was being quiet. And I remember, hey, Rob, did you get any info on him? Don't worry about it. Just go out there and fight him. He's pretty good. I'm like, what do you mean he's pretty good? And he's do you want to really know? Why don't you just go out there? And I said, I want to know, so I'm prepared for what's going to happen, right? He's well, he's the first Japanese to win in Lampini Stadium against a Lampini's champion, right? I'm like, oh, that's how come they told me he's like a second string guy, right? So I said, okay, whatever. I'm gonna sand out his, I remember me saying, I'm gonna Sancho his ass, right? So I was just gonna shoot in, dump him, then strike, and throw him off with my takedowns, right? And that's what I did. And next thing I know, in the first round, I threw a combo, right kick and then head kick, and man, I clipped him his head, and he was out. I was like, yo, that was like easy. And every fight after that just got easy. And then then my last fight for Scott Coker as Strike Force for the Sandust type of fighting. I remember I was recovering from hamstring surgery from lifting weights, and I just went in there. I said, I feel like I can. It was one of Frank Shamrock's guys, and I said, hey, I just, I'm recovered now. I'm just gonna go in there, and I finished my career with the win in 5 rounds, right? But I was like, man, I couldn't knock him out, but I was just getting back into it after surgery, right? So I took some time off, and then Javier Mendez and Scott Coker's like, hey, I'm gonna start MMA. Do you want to fight? And I'm like, I don't know. And Javier's like, come, you conquered everything else. Look, you went from point fighting, you won Taekwondo tournaments. Look at all the platforms you fought on. You're a champion at every single platform. You have to try MMA. So I started training with Javier Mendez and all the guys at AKA, John Fitch, Mike Swick, Koscheck, then Kane came in a little bit later, and then I was like, okay, let's go. And then I went, I had a good run, and I won the Strike Force title against Frank Shamrock.
So all the guys, this question for all the guys sitting on the bar stool watching the MMA on pay-per-view. Let's say you take a group of professional MMA guys.
Yeah.
And you pick a guy out of the middle of the pack, not the best, not the worst, middle of the pack. How much better at hand-to-hand combat is that guy than your average, maybe he's taken a couple of years of karate. Maybe he, grew up beating up his brothers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How much better is that average professionally trained fighter than your average Joe on the street?
Put it this way: if he's not drunk and if he's not causing trouble, and if he had the right mindset, these are the guys that you really don't want to mess with. These are the guys that will kill you, and not even know that they killed you because they hit you with such precision, and that the punch might not have killed you, but when you drop and you're unconscious in midair and you hit your head on the concrete because you're fighting on the street, or he picks you up and he slams you down, or he puts a submission on you and he holds it too long, or he cranks a certain way and something breaks, then because of adrenaline, he's still cracking on you. And only where your head's gonna go is when you get punched in the face, and then there's no cushion where there's a mat in the octagon or in the ring. Your head is getting hit twice because the fist hits you, then the concrete hits you. So it's like there's really no way where the force will go through. So you're taking the internal damage too. So though, just even the newer guys that are professionals and coming up and they had a lot of amateur fights and they turn pro, you don't want to mess with. These are the guys, if they like tactically, if they know, and like, I mean, if they became like, they learned a little bit of tactics and they learn how to shoot a gun, man, these are the guys that you would want on your side.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in that. I'm going towards a broader point too, and I want to get into your the training that you do and the instruction that you do with firearms. So, do you train a lot of women? Let me ask you this way: do you think that an average woman, can effectively learn to defend herself, with using any kind of martial arts?
Against a man?
Against the man. And I know that sounds like a really harsh question, but in reality, can a woman, average woman, however, 140-pound woman or whatever, is there a level of martial arts that's reasonable that the average woman can really truly learn to truly be able to defend themselves against the man?
Yes. An average woman can learn to defend against an average man. Right? An average man, meaning he doesn't know how to fight. He's just, whether he's a criminal, as in a robber, or he's a rapist, or he's whatever. And if he doesn't know how to fight, and remember, these criminals, they use their tactics, right? Whether it's like a tactic of they're going to follow you for a week and they know your ins, your outs, the time you go to the gym, the time you go to the store, the time you come home, is your house alarmed, or is it what's your daily routine. Now those are the guys, they're good at that, and then they're good at surprising you and taking you down and choking you or whatever they have to do, and to wherever they're doing. But now the woman who trains on a regular basis, meaning if she's not getting to the dojo, but she puts in 15 or 20 minutes every single day, as like, before she starts her day, or before and just put like three techniques, whether it's a jab, cross, hook, and a little bit of shadow boxing, that becomes muscle memory. Now, if someone comes in at her and she throws the combos, she will have a way better chance of surviving an attack against someone who's just an average man, right? And then now, if you got an amateur fighter or someone who does martial arts and been doing it for years, now that person can do damage. Now it all comes into the mindset. She's been attacked. She's had so many rounds of sparring in. She can get in and out. And on top of it, she's a complete martial artist where she can strike, she can kick, she can grapple, she knows about wrestling. These are the women that can do a number on a guy, like fake, come up, jab, cross, round kick to the head. Next thing, the guy's going down, she puts in double vines and chokes him out. Just like you look at, there's that one on internet, it spread like where this muscle guy, this bodybuilder, went into a jiu-jitsu gym. He got choked out by the girl like several times, right?
Yeah,
first he got the coach, then the coach said, because the coach naturally knows when he goes up against his student and this strong guy, and then the coach was able to easily maneuver and tap him, right? So he knows the level of his students. So he got a blue belt. I think it was a blue belt, and she choked him out. So it's all,
I think that's a very important distinction that you just made
yeah,
regarding criminals aren't typically trained fighters, and trained fighters aren't typically criminals. I think that's a really important distinction, and
yeah.
I think it emphasizes the importance of training, which is a really good transition into your firearms career. How did you get into firearms?
Um, I've always loved, shoot guns. I back in the day, my mom put me in this camp for, it was like a week, and they taught you how to survive and shoot 22 and then bow and arrow. And then I was just, I came in, I took first at the bow and arrow out of the whole camp. Then I took first at the shooting the 22, and then I enjoyed it. And then just, I didn't get a chance to shoot after that. My mom got me a pellet gun, so I was shooting cans and stuff like that. But then once I got invited to train with, um, I was out in Virginia Beach for a week with the SEAL team guys, and I trained with this group. They had the gold team, the blue team, the red team, and I think every every um every 3 months a team would rotate. So there's the red team is off, then the 3 months later the new team. So I had three teams, and I was in Virginia Beach for a good week, and I trained with all those guys, and then
you were training them, like you were teaching them MMA, or was your job to spar with them, or what was that?
no, my job was teach them how to transition from the punching and kicking into the takedowns, because their jiu-jitsu coach was Dave Camarillo, which was my MMA BJJ coach, right? And then my striking coach was Javier Mendez. But then when Javier got too busy, holding pads for me, his a really good pad holder at AK was Gary Owens. So Gary Owens started holding pads for me, and then he went down to Virginia Beach a few times, working everyone striking, and on the SEAL team. So they invited me out for a week. They paid me for it, and
Cool.
and
And
even
that led to getting into firearms a little bit, or
yeah, I was out there, and they're like, "You like to shoot?" I'm like, "Sure, I love it." And like the first gun I shot was like a Vector, and most of the guys that I train, because the guy who brought me in, he was a team leader, right? He had his own team, but then he got up there, and then I guess where he the rank before, I'm sure he's retired by now. I still have his number. The last time I talked to him was like a year ago, right? And then he was going to start up his own fitness training thing, and he called me up and asked me for some advice, and then on like how to do this fitness business. And then and I told him, yeah, I'll totally help you out. Social media is key, if you want to start it. And then he's the one who got me. I literally shot almost everything except a 50 cal. I got a shot of saw. I mean, I still have the picture of it, but back then those guys, you can't release any of these things. You can't show this. So they let me take pictures, and then he had some videos, and it was on his phone, because he couldn't show how the base looks like, or where they train and they shoot, but I had such a blast. And after that I was like, oh, I'm addicted to guns, and then that was right before I was getting ready for the UFC 148, where I fought Patrick Cote. Then after that I went to the gun show in Las Vegas, SHOT Show, and then Taryn Butler from Taryn Tactical, and I met a bunch of other people, and then next thing I know, Taryn invited me to his range, and I went and trained there as much as I could for like 4.5 years, and then every time
sure that got you real good. I'm sure, like that the level of training that you get on his range is pretty outstanding.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's and he's not only is he a good trainer, he's a good shooter. I remember at a tournament, because he's like, hey Cung, you should go and compete too. I don't have time. At the time I was still fighting. I'm like, I don't have time at all, right? And I remember I'm all, hey, what happened to your shoulder? He's all, I was doing my run and gun course and I fell and I, hurt my shoulder really bad. And I'm like, so what happened? You okay? And he's all, I still took first. I'm like, how'd you take first? I was shooting my gun with one hand. I was like, damn. And he demonstrates. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna wait in the back. I'll let whoever else is in front of me shoot first, because how can you match that kind of speed, But then just the repetition and the different drills that he has you do. Then I started adding in, let me kick stuff, let me throw, and he's like, hey, don't kick this target. You might break it. So it's and then I got a chance to train with a lot of different other guys, some tier one, some just really good shooters. And I started working with Chad Talbert. He trained the SEAL team
I know
for
Chad. He's down here in San Diego.
yeah. So I trained with him for a bit, and then we're putting together, we're rebooting my show, Fight or Flight.
Okay, so when you teach students as far as firearms, is there a particular philosophy or emphasis or curriculum that you teach? Is there a particular level, or are you from basic to advanced, or what do you like to teach, and what can people get from learning from you?
Well, at first I had to start out somewhere, right? So I taught basics, and then I started going to intermediates. Then now I'm teaching some of the advanced classes, and then I do get a lot of private training requests. So, I do quite a few of those. And then, when I'm not like training my son, or, on the weekends, I'm usually out in the range teaching, then training.
So what do people learn in the advanced class? What type of techniques?
I like to get their heart rate up, and then like whether they move, they run, and they're running and gunning, and then they transition from right shoulder to left shoulder, from their with their pistol, they're shooting from their right hand switching to their left hand. Just I keep it simple, and I keep it like what would you truly use, because you're not in a combat situation. Even though I learned a lot of stuff from a lot of the top level guys that are tier one operators, but I try to keep basics so they can stay alive, but at the same time I try to make it fun. I get their heart rate up, and I say, okay, now where your condition is at. Sometimes like for me, you can have all the technique in the world, but if you don't have the condition to back it up, then you can only take it so far. So what if your adrenaline's going so much, or what if like you get out of bed and you get into a fight with someone in your house and their friends are coming in, now you got a gun and your heart rate's way up, you just taken out this guy, and you submitted him or you choked him out, and now you're engaged in a gunfight. So I put different scenarios. I put like different scenarios. When it's a private, I'll be like, give me a little bit of how your house is laid out, and he's all, okay, this is my hallway, here's the distance. I said, okay. So I set up the range as, okay, if someone's gonna enter, this is here's three different options, here's three different position that if you're gonna shoot, and get behind cover. Of course, by that time they already know what cover and concealment is, right? So shoot here, and then if they have a gun, they're shooting back. Then where's your family gonna be at? Where's your strong point? Where are they at? And what's your code word? Hey, it's you. Don't shoot me. So, and then position yourself in different places in your house, and engage. And here's the thing, it's home field advantage. Your house better than these criminals. So, and if you don't know your house, you're in a lot of trouble. So,
And you have a Hollywood career too, as well, right?
Yeah. I've been out of the Hollywood game for about 2 years now. With my son, moving from Elk Grove here, and starting over. I just wanted to make sure I was that father figure, and I was there for him. And he's taking off, he's excelling. It's almost that point where I have to make sure I got to keep up. If I'm going to go run with him, I got to be in shape to run with him. If I'm going to grapple and wrestle with him, I got to be able to do those long rounds and make it like where he's benefiting. So in the scrambles and stuff, and then sparring with him, and then now he's everyone's like, that's Mini Kung, but I'm gonna know he is his own person.
Yeah.
He's not mini me or anything. He's his own person. He's the one who put in the work. He's the one who's dedicating himself. And I put a run and gun where he's runs and he shoots and he's hitting every single target. Then he drops on his back. He's hitting like, those plates where they swing on his back, and he turning to his side. He's hitting them, turning to the other side, hitting them, getting up, shooting one hand. I was like, man, I did a good job.
How old is he?
He's only 16.
Wow. What is he? Does he want to go? Does he want to do professional fighting, or maybe he wants to go join a SEAL team, or what?
No, we talked about it. He definitely doesn't want to, have to, join the SEAL team and eventually might have to, put someone down, right? He just wants to train. He definitely wants to be a fighter, but he loves to shoot. And, he's, both my sons shoot very good. I have an older son, and then him, and my younger son, it's with my ex, and then, but I have full custody of my two boys, but my oldest now is like, he lives on his own, he's 20 now. So,
you talked about, you brought up Tito Ortiz. Did you know he just got elected to the Huntington Beach City Council?
Oh, I didn't bring up Tito, but I trained with John Fitch and then Mike Swick. I didn't bring up Tito, but I did.
You were talking. I guess you guys were on the same card in one of your fights. But are you in politics at all? Do you have views on politics?
I know a little bit about politics, and obviously what's going on with this election is kind of crazy. It's almost like I'm probably better at, because my faith is in God Almighty, and it's always been strong since I was young, as a young boy coming up, because my grandfather and my mom was always, hey, God first, pray. We always pray before we eat, and then pray before we sleep, and we pray when we wake up. And then I'm probably better with the Bible than what's going on in politics. It's not that hard for someone. It's common sense to see what's going on, what's happening to the country. And then as like my mother-in-law, she's crazy thing is, like a lot of people say, oh, like for me, I kind of think it's cool. It's like I brag about it. My mother-in-law is an exorcist. She exorcises demons for a living.
Wow.
She's my wife. My wife is a Native American. She's Apache. Her mom's a shaman, and when it comes to politics, she actually, like, I was like, oh, Trump's got it. There's no way Biden's gonna win. She's on Biden's gonna win. Something's gonna have to take place because things are happening. And crazy thing, my wife saw, she had a dream about what's gonna happen a week before it happened, and she saw something's gonna happen. It's actually more like spiritual. It's like a spiritual battle. This whole country is gonna go into a spiritual battle, and her mom's all, look, in the Bible says the great bear with the sickle will become states. It's already happened. Russia is the great bear with the sickle, is now there. Look, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, so they become states. And then so she's all, the great eagle will fall from within. So, and then she predicted Biden was going to win. I was like, no way he's going to win. There's no way. And I used to make, like, kind of joke about it and be like, hey, look at who shows up for Trump. Look who shows up for Biden. No way he's going to win. And holy shit.
Now, living in California and being involved in Hollywood and being a gun owner, does that make you more aware of politics, or is it really better to just shy away, in fear of it might affect your career?
No, it's like, am I going to deny God because I'm embarrassed about something? No, I'm going to speak my truth, and I speak my mind. I think my Instagram page has been flagged a whole bunch of times. So I think I'm definitely on the shadow ban list, because I was like dropping a lot of, stuff that, that I felt, and then of course, with the Asian community being like more of on the top of the list of being victims, I start speaking up, and I start like posting stuff, and they're like, this is graphic content, or then when I start posting about like politics, like what's going on. Like how I felt was like somewhat corrupt. And next thing I know, I'm like, I got fact checked or whatever it is, and that's just lame, and then all of a sudden when Trump got banned on Twitter and Facebook, I was like, wow, this is like a communist shit here, so
It's getting kind of weird, man. I got to tell you, it's getting kind of weird. What's your best advice? You've expert level training on hand-to-hand combat, expert level training with a firearm. What's your best advice that you can give for anyone who, going into a defensive situation of any kind?
my best advice is basically, if something is happening to you at home, or if you're at the ATM, or you're going to get groceries and you're walking to your car, you got to have that situational awareness, because you are your first responder. Because when the cops come, they're just writing up a report, and you're hoping that they'll catch him, or you're not. You're hoping that you're not in the hospital, or 12 people. For me, I there's that saying, right? I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. So if you don't have a firearms, and if you're not carrying the firearms in these days, and you don't know how to use a firearm, man, you got to jump on. You got to get on that bandwagon. You got to look at how many people have invested in guns. I think the month of January, 2 million guns were sold, right? So, and look how many guns were sold soon as this pandemic started. So something's going on, right? And look at how many other pandemics has happened in the past, but how come no mask mandate? How come, because now the technology is at a certain level. So now, there's the vaccine, right? There's, there's so many people call it conspiracy theory. Well, do your research on the vaccine. Why is the patent number 060606? Why is there like the serum that glows? Why is it called, I'm not sure the exact name of it, why is it called luciferum? I mean, it's right in front of your face. And how come all these people are having issues and the news is suppressing it? How come the vaccine or the big pharma, if something happens to you, they're not responsible? But if something did happen, you can't sue them. How come? Why?
Yeah. Throughout the interview, I noticed that you talked about your mom a lot. And I think that it sounds like you had a really amazing woman as a mom, a single mom, came to this country, got you into Taekwondo, sent you to, the camp, where the survival camp, where you tried a firearm for the first time. Sounds like a really amazing woman. Is she still with us?
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm sure you're extremely grateful. It sounds like a really, really great woman.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for my mom and what she did and how she struggled, and still was a great parent and did as much as she could to make sure everything I needed, was provided.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really great. So last question, what's something you learned in the ring that you're going to teach your kids, or you've already taught your kids, so that they don't have to learn it in the ring?
That's a good question, because it's just more on experience, right? Whether it's in the ring or in life. I always tell them, okay, it's not a trick question. It's there's no right and wrong answer. But would you rather be wise, or would you rather be smart? What's your take?
It's funny you say that. My wife actually says that to me a lot too. It's a good question, right? I think I'd rather be smart,
Actually, believe it or not, you are the first person who answered it that way, right? How I say it is like there's no wrong answer, right? Because everyone's gonna have to live their life and learn from their mistakes. That's being wise. You become wise from your mistakes. But the smart ones learns from the wise one, because the wise one already made that mistake. So when the smart ones ask him, tell me some things I need to know so I don't make these mistakes, since you already made them. So the smart ones will learn from the wise one. And the most important thing is, don't make the same mistake as the wise one, because the wise one already was there, learned from it, and now he's giving you that advice. All you have to do is keep it up here and apply it to life. That is, I think that is the how I would put it out there. Be smart and wise, but learn from the wise so you don't make the same mistake as.
That's exactly it. Like my wife, actually, she that's something that she says a lot, and I think I was wise to marry her, and I'm smart to listen to her.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, listen, this was awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. I got to tell you, I really enjoyed watching your highlight reel. I really enjoyed learning about you, reading about you, but I definitely it didn't compare to sitting here talking to you. I think you've had an amazing life. It sounds like you're doing an amazing job. You're an amazing dad and an amazing trainer. If people do want to learn from you, if they want to come take lessons from you, or they want to find you and train on firearms, where do they go?
Call up Bay Area Tactical. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, good.
And my journey in entertainment isn't done yet. So soon, hopefully, I'll be able to announce some stuff when we're done with that project, because I don't want to say anything until it's done, right? So, but big things are coming.
Well, once you have an announcement, come on Gun Owners Radio, and we'd be happy to get the word out. I look forward to seeing whatever your next project is. Sounds cool.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me on the show.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Thanks for watching our Magnum show, where we dig into gun owners topics a little more in depth. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.